everyone, and welcome to another thrilling episode of Sphere of Success, the podcast that looks at challenge and adversity in business and how we can alchemize that to a positive result. Often that can be from a leadership perspective, how we're looking at ourselves, how we can grow personally, but also for those people that we do business with as well, because how we show up is often translated as how others see us and perceive us as well. And today I have the most amazing lady. She's got a bit of a success story with Toastmasters that I think we can allude to today as well, because we're recording on the 1st of July. So it's the new year for the Toastmasters crew. So it's going to be, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on that. And the wonderful lady is called Debbie Williams. She is fantastic. She is the podcast host of the Debbie Williams' podcast. She tells stories. It's all about telling our stories. And I was absolutely privileged. It was an honor to be on her podcast a little while ago now, but it was, she's superb. What actually Debbie is she is absolutely into leadership. And so she helps people navigate leadership. And also today, she wants to go into a little bit more detail about how you actually manage your fear of success. Yes, I know, I was there. It sounds odd, doesn't it? Why would I be frightened of success? But actually, behind closed doors, things have probably gone on in most of our lives where we've been told, you'll never make it. You're not good enough. You can't do that. And actually, that whole thing, that fear of success, this is sphere of success, but success means different things to different people. Maybe you've been told money is the root of all evil. Oh no, people like us don't do things like that. So we'll go into it in much more detail on our podcast today. So welcome, Debbie. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you, Deborah. It's wonderful to be here today.
And I use wonderful a lot. I think all my listeners go, oh, how many times can they tick the times I've used the word wonderful? But it's wonderful to have you. So Debbie, just tell us a little bit about you, if that's okay, who you are and why you got into what you do now.
Sure. So I've spent most of my career in the media, doing a number of different roles, and you've alluded to the fact that today is the first day of the new year in the Toastmasters community. And I start my year as District Director for District 91, which is UK South, which means that I am the person who's the equivalent of the CEO for the district. And my journey was probably one that was unexpected, because when I joined Toastmasters many years ago in May 2017, I had no idea that there was a leadership group within Toastmasters. I went there to improve my public speaking skills. And it's a bit like an onion. The more you do things, get involved, like there's a layer that unpeels, and then it's something, and so you realise that there's more to it, and there's more opportunities to develop and to grow in a way that was unexpected.
Wow, this is amazing. I mean, Toastmasters, we hear of it, and I've just had a little chat with you before we came on the show. And it helps, I think, people to engage with their authenticness, to actually speak from the heart. And I know I've been guilty of it I always call it before the breakthrough and after the breakthrough. As most people know on this podcast, I had a nervous breakthrough a few years ago, and that changed my life. And I was in that situation where persona was absolutely full and center, so that the Deborah Blackman that was the big, edgy, hard, whatever, going out there, etc. And that wasn't me at all. And it was draining and exhausting. And I never felt I was good enough because I didn't know how to center myself. So as human beings, we're pretty much, we have very much difference, and that's fantastic, but often there's a common theme, and I'm sure that's not particularly unusual with the kind of people that you see in Toastmasters. How would you help people? And we're going to talk about success just in a little while, but this is important to success. How would you say to people to get inside of themselves and find that authenticity, that they can speak from their heart rather than from that persona?
It's about finding your voice, as you rightly say, and it's about being able to convey yourself with that authenticity of that person who you really are. And we don't always feel comfortable doing that, because sometimes you may feel as though it's a bit egotistical, or it's a bit, I'm trying to show off, and it's not about that. And it's also you feeling comfortable about sharing your story, because some people along their life journey may have been told, shut up, be quiet, you're not important enough, your voice isn't as important as mine. There's, if you have a learning disability, for example, others may have told you you're stupid for it. There's lots of different things that may have affected each individual along their journey. Or you may have been working in a company where there's a lot of dominating voices, and unless you're on their level, we don't want to hear from you. So how do you find your voice in amongst everything and all those beliefs that people have thrust upon you, or even taking ownership that you may have told yourself as well, that my voice isn't good enough to be heard? And certainly when I started my own podcast, at first I had every single excuse not to start it. I was too busy, who wants to hear from me, and what have I got to share to the world? And then, having had so many excuses, the last excuse was that I couldn't find a microphone compatible with my Mac. It was my birthday, so my daughter rectified that problem, and I'd run out of excuses. And I remember recording that first episode, and then I went into panic mode. I thought, everyone's going to know that I've done this, and this is my voice that's going out there. Are you sure you want to do this? And I remember press send, but I thought, I'm not going to promote it. I just don't want everyone to know that this is what I've done. And I woke up the next morning and there were 30 downloads without me saying anything to anyone. And I thought, okay. And then I shared it, and I told everyone I was doing it, and everyone was very supportive about this podcast. And I think it's allowing yourself to experiment, allowing yourself to be heard, and giving yourself that permission. And I think it's not seeking validation from others, but seeking validation from yourself. And for some people it's hard, for some people it's easy. And I just think that allowing yourself to move to the pace that you're never going to feel comfortable. There's always going to be this element of discomfort, but allowing yourself to feel that there, and realizing that, well, actually maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and just taking whatever steps you think that that will allow you to get to where you want to be.
This is very interesting, because to this day I always think I speak so incredibly slowly. I listen to myself and say, come on. And I hear, especially with American people who are on podcasts, I don't think that quickly, so I can't speak that quickly. And I don't know if it's something to do with the fact that I like to make sure that I can be understood. So I kind of pronounce each word as it should be. I always think, I'm so slow when I listen back to the recording. But that's a lot better than what I used to be, with no voice when I started out. Literally, like, oh my goodness, my palms would be sweating, my heart would be racing, I could feel my shoulders coming up to my ears, I wanted to look down, I didn't want to look up, I kept on blinking away and looking up here and there. And we had the brilliant opportunity to speak while we were planning this episode, and you told me, and please people, don't think I'm ever egotistical, because I'm not. I mean, I'm just here as an example. I'm just where everybody else is trying to do her thing. But you said to me, Wow, you've come a long way since the last time we spoke. And I hadn't really thought about it until you said that. And actually, you've given me some
I think it's
thoughts.
Sometimes to actually realise the progression that we're making. And I remember when we spoke, I think it was about a year ago, I believe, when we had our initial discussion and recorded our podcast episode. And, you know, the Deborah that I met back then was really lovely, really friendly, finding her feet a little. But the Deborah that I've met this week has completely blown me away. You've sapped into your own confidence. You know, you show up as you, and for me, it's absolutely amazing. And maybe you want to share, I don't know, the steps of your journey to how you were today, because we don't always realise when we're growing until someone says to you, I see that change in you. Because for me, it's absolutely phenomenal. And also what you're doing as well, like you've expanded your business, you've expanded your portfolio. And by allowing yourself to do that, you've come into your own person and you're enjoying being you, and you're living that authenticity that we spoke about in terms of enjoying your voice, enjoying sharing your story.
It's interesting, and thank you, because that's really touched my heart. Got quite emotional, actually. It wasn't an easy journey, and I think that most people will identify with. And please, again, I am very proud of what I'm doing. I'm very happy in myself, so I'm not being deliberately sort of self-effacing. I take the fact that what you've said, and I'm truly grateful. But the other thing is, as special as we all are individually, we're all special. Everybody's special. So I think a lot of people would resonate with perhaps my journey, because I'm sure it's not that uncommon, is that you pretend to be something for so many years, or you try and be the thing that you think people want you to be. Well, that's kind of like a fool's game. It was for me, because how do I know what people wanted me to be? I can't get inside their head, etc. But I can't help but be me. But that me changes. And now I've realized that my reality that I saw when I was before the growth spurt was very different. So what happened was the mirror of what I was inside manifested itself outside. So one thing I noticed a lot, and there's no thing to anybody else, there's no judgment here, but the type of people now that are in my life are very different to the type of people that were in my life back then. And everybody, I wish everybody well, that's not the issue. But because I was quite anxious, quite fearful, not able to think of myself as a bedrock to rely on myself, I attracted people in my life who had addictions, who had mental issues, who had difficult times and chaotic lifestyles themselves. So as I've grown as a person, and this is almost imperceptible growth, as you say, I've realised, and I wish them well, and I've not turned my back on people, don't get me wrong, but it's like a snake that sheds its skin to grow. I've kind of shed past ways and people that I was dealing with, and new ways and new people have come into my life, and I count you as one of those, Debbie, who are more centered, more grounded, who are visionary, who are forward thinking, who are holistic, who are compassionate, who want abundance for all rather than a scarcity mindset that it's just me and nobody else, or that they're not so egotistical in that way. And when those people do come into my life, I find it like, whoa, that kind of sticks out a bit like a sore thumb, you know. It's something where I think to myself, isn't that interesting? And also, I never thought that I had leadership qualities. I've been involved in managing and leading people, but I always thought, this isn't me. They're going to find me out as a fraud soon. It's not that. And weirdly enough, just like you said, I'm saying yes to things that are putting me into a leadership role. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I now know it's not about controlling other people and telling them what to do. It's about building a team and a collaboration and that network. But when it counts, say, actually, this is what I think. And this is why I think we should go that way. And people go, okay. And I look and I think, what's that mean? Did I just do that? And people will go, yeah, of course you did. It's everybody's journey. So if you've been a seasoned leader and you've always done this and it's become natural, or that you've learned over the years, it's easy to forget what it was like when you first started. So thank you for mentioning that. So there's a little bit about my journey from the point of view of from where I was with no voice because of all of the baggage that I brought with me, to actually throwing that cloak of invisibility away, which I always thought was my protection, and actually going out there with my vulnerability has helped enormously to make me feel loved and wanted and included, etc., because I'm in it now rather than stepping out. And I'd love to come back to you to think, okay, what is it within the leadership role that you're in, within the training and development side of things within leadership, that you can help others sit at their rightful seat at the table in that leadership role?
I think the first thing is why. Why do you want to be in a leadership role? What is the purpose of it? And what is your vision? For example, in Toastmasters, the members always come first in what we do, and every decision is based around the members, and we work it as a team, and we have a vision. We have a district mission, a club mission, and there's the wider Toastmasters International mission, which is to help people become more confident, and in every realm of their life. But I just think that when you're leading others, particularly when you're leading a team of volunteers, what is it that you can do to encourage people to give up their free time to actually serve as district leaders? And I think one of the main things is having that clear vision of that collective vision. What is it we want to achieve collectively together? What do we see? We mentioned that the beginning of the Toastmaster year is the 1st of July and the end is the 30th of June the following year. What do we want the district to look like on the 30th of June next year, for example? And this is an opportunity to actually serve the members, to pay it forward as well, because there's lots of people that have helped me on my journey to get to where I am now. And it's an opportunity to pay it forward to help others along their leadership journey, and also to leave a legacy in terms of whatever we build together as a team, so we can pass the baton on to the team, to next year's team. But I think it all comes down to why. Why is it you want to do what you're doing? There's a difference between leading with a vision in comparison to I'm a manager and I'm going to watch you clock in and clock out, and be very pedantic about that, and I think a lot of that comes into how we train our leaders, making sure that everyone knows what the vision is, so everyone can lead with purpose. And that's what it is all about, is leading with purpose. What is it you want to achieve? Not being afraid to fail either. And I think because Toastmasters is a safe base, not everyone is going to know absolutely everything. Some people may take a wrong turn, but there'll be a support network around everyone to say, that wasn't your best move, but doesn't really matter. Let's get it back on track. But equally, when we have leaders who are doing amazing stuff, well, let's share what has worked well so other people can replicate that. And it is about, being in that supportive environment that actually helps to facilitate that growth as well.
I like what you said about failure. And we talked about in my introduction, the fear of success. Sometimes that can be translated, and I like your view, into the fear of failure. How do you help it, Debbie? How do you help people look at failure? I won't put words in your mouth, but how can you help people with perhaps their failure phobia?
You know what? I think it's all about terminology, isn't it? Because if we use the quote by Churchill, failure isn't fatal. And it's not. Failure is a learning opportunity. And so if something hasn't worked, or we can't be afraid, for example, how many inventors, even if you look at the Apple story, for example, how many devices did they go through in order to get to the device they wanted? And there are other similar stories. And sometimes you need to experience those different learning opportunities, is what I would prefer to refer to it as, in order to move forward. Not everything's going to work, but my gosh, what a learning opportunity it is, because then you can share with others, do you know what? This didn't work for me, but maybe it can be tweaked so it can work differently for you as you go along your journey. Or maybe you can suggest something that would work even better. I just think there's lots of opportunities to learn and to grow. And by having that fear of failure will actually stop you from actually experimenting to see what would work and what wouldn't work, for example. And also you're stopping yourself from growing as well. I think we're so concerned about other people's opinions and wanting to look, like the ideal strong person in front of everyone and worried about what our peers say. But sometimes we just need to allow ourselves to challenge ourselves to see whether something will work. If it does, then it's fantastic and spectacular. If it doesn't, what can we learn from that? And how can we share those learnings, and how can we move forward in a way that is positive for all?
Yes, I think that most entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, have most probably, and I think there's a statistic, and I don't know it offhand, but I think that there's they failed 5 times with businesses that haven't worked out. And that's something to really take into account, is that, you know what, trying something and failing, it's well, what happens if you never tried it? What happens if you never learned? And the other thing is, those failures of those businesses, I always think, well, that's where you get, as you said, quite rightly so, that's your testing ground. That's where you learn, isn't it? That's where you think, well, I can see where I went wrong last time, so I'm not going to do that again. And I liked a little bit of that, but hey, that didn't go. Now, it could be the type of people you have surrounded yourself with in your business. That's why it failed. Market circumstances, things out of your control, whatever it might be, the product or the service. But you think, I'm not going to do that again. For when I come to that point in the business, I'm going to do something different. And so that's amazing. But to come up with these ideas, I think, good old Winston Churchill, he's always credited for so many quotes. I don't know if this one was a Winston Churchill quote, but it sounds like it's something he would say. That most people stumble across a great opportunity, pick themselves up, dust themselves down, and keep on walking.
Exactly, yes.
And I think that failure element for me, now I've become more confident in myself, and I would almost say confidence is almost like using the phrase, I'm at ease with myself. It's kind of that inner knowing, and I think if anybody thinks about themselves in those situations where you think, I've got this, I'm good at this, And again, I will say it's no ego or arrogance, and I just thank God that I've been given the opportunity. But now I'm able to say yes to things that I wasn't able to say yes to before, because I know, yeah, I've got this. I've got experience of doing this. Yeah, I've got experience of not doing it particularly well. And I'd like to get better at it. And it's not going to stop me from saying yes. And because of that, my life at the moment is enriching. And yeah, I've got issues. Everybody's got issues. You know, that's the whole thing with life, isn't it? Is the issues are part of it. We can never get away from them, and neither should we. Because if we don't have issues, where are we going to grow from? Immense suffering. I mean, you've talked a little bit about your history. I won't go into that. I've got my history. Most people know that because I want to share so that people aren't alone, that they feel that they're supported. Pretty deep stuff. You know, you ask most people, there's probably one pretty deep thing that's going on in their life, and you think, oh, crikey. So we're all there, and we don't actually go out and talk to each other about it because, you know what? Well, that's us to contend with. So we're already dealing with quite a lot of stuff in our lives, and the older we get, just by definition, the more stuff we kind of have to deal with. I'd like you to go into the fact that with, again, Toastmasters, leadership, etc., how do you go about helping people to let go of things that they feel, and I say feel because they not necessarily are, that they feel are holding them back?
You know what? It's one step at a time. I think that as members embark on their journey and they feel comfortable listening to what other people are sharing. And, you know, for example, when I walked through doors for the very first time, someone gave a testimonial as to why they had joined. And their story resonated with me because it was very similar to my own. I thought, I'm in the right place. And I think when you start listening to other people's journeys, other people's stories, the industries that they work in, because it covers, you know, everyone comes from lots of different backgrounds. I think when you listen to that, you feel more comfortable sharing your own journey and sharing your own stories. And it's about being comfortable in your voice, actually listening to your voice, comfortable sharing with others. And you do that step by step by attending meetings regularly, by participating in various meeting roles, for example, networking and building relationships. And I think, as opposed to doing, going on a course for a few hours and then you're expected to know it all, this is something that you are continually doing, and you're having an opportunity to grow from every single meeting. And I think what it helps you to do is to take charge of your own personal self-development and to really utilize that in the best way possible. And I think one thing about Toastmasters is that there are so many different layers. You go in for one reason, which for most people is to improve your public speaking, and then you come out with, you know, on what in my case, you know, a leadership journey, as it were. And for me, it's allowed me to grow in a way that was most unexpected, and I've enjoyed every step.
And you know what? This is interesting. There's two things I'd like you to go into. Is Toastmasters, you imagine that you're going to be the one that's doing the talking, that you're the one that's going to be using your voice. But what you've mentioned there, and this is something interesting about letting go, bringing it back to that theme, is listening to others' stories and what other people are saying. What personally did you get out of the experience of being able to improve your listening skills?
That's helped me no end. I would say that there's lots of different roles within Toastmasters that you can do, whether it's a timekeeper, a grammarian, listening to people's grammar, for example, a harkmaster, listening to the whole meeting and asking people what they've remembered in terms of what's being said, or just evaluating the meeting as a whole. There's lots of different ways that you can listen, or even just sitting as a member listening to the whole meeting. But my listening skills has improved in leaps and bounds. With my podcast, for example, I don't plan my questions, similar to you. It's a case of active listening, and that active listening was developed within Toastmasters to actually be able to actively listen and to respond to what people say, as opposed to, I've got a list of questions, doesn't really matter what you said. Oh yeah, so you said that you fell down a mountain, is that any other, and you hurt yourself. Okay, next question. It's kind of like, well, no, let's take a deep delve into that. And you just said this, it's really, really profound, and I want to go into a bit more depth and detail about it. And I think that by showing that you can listen, it enhances your conversations, it enhances your relationships. Now, I'm not just talking about personal relationships, but business relationships as well, to be able to demonstrate that you can actually listen to what the other party are wanting to convey, and you're able to respond to that. And it has an impact in terms of how that relationship develops and how you move as an individual as well.
Yeah, listening, what do they say? You've got two of these and one of these, and they should be used in the ratio that they're there. So, twice as much listening as to a third less speaking, or whatever that is. The other thing is, because you're actively listening to other people, and again, from looking at success, people often talk about, and anybody in business is going to go, yeah, networking. Yeah, you might be the king or queen of networking. Absolutely brilliant if you are. It's not necessarily my default position. I'm an introvert by nature. I often find these events incredibly tiring. I used to think, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? So I used to wind myself up intolerably and get so anxious about it, and everybody would think I'd be fine, and I wasn't. And I think a lot of people can identify with that. What's the benefit of being in a regular group setting where you're meeting these people? I don't know how often the meetings are, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, maybe monthly, I'm not sure. But coming back on a regular basis, what did you see in people as a result of that group coming together? Are there any particular things that you often identify with people as to that way in which they are within that group environment?
I think I'm going to use, if I use a Toastmasters meeting as an example, you're in an environment where there isn't one person in that room who doesn't want you to be successful, but everyone there is your cheerleader. So there's that automatic support network. And so because that support network is there, they're the ones who can actually see your progress, and they're the ones who will be saying, oh my gosh, you speak so well now. I remember when you first came in and you're a bit nervous, and now you're doing X, Y, Z. Or now they're the ones mentoring the new ones who are coming through the door. So you're seeing that progression being paid forward as well. And I think that that support network and that will to want others to do well on a continuous basis, to actually watch each other grow and to cheerlead those people into their successful journeys. Everyone's journey is different, but to actually see people progress is something that is quite fulfilling in a way that is completely indescribable. Because I remember, for example, the day that I joined, someone else joined the exact same day, and in a recent conference I was elected district director, and that person went a completely different route to myself, because there's different things that you can do, but he won one of the speech contests, for example. And so we were both celebrating the different successes the same weekend. But I think it's about being there for each other, supporting each other, And that's how you develop those relationships, because you've got something in common.
Wow, Debbie, I mean, yes, I think Toastmasters, just from what you said, I'm very keen to find out more myself, and we'll take that offline. I think I'll be definitely availing myself of that service, because like anything, I can't see my own blind spots. That's why they call them blind spots. I've got to the point where I'm confident to a certain extent of where I've got to within my journey as to how my communication skills and my verbal skills are improving, also my listening skills. Podcasting, if anybody's out there, it's a terrific way to learn how to develop listening and verbal communication, and your physical communication as well, because I know I used to say, I was like this, I didn't move, it's like, oh my gosh. And I've become freer, and I'm much more able to be myself in that, which I think is beautiful. I mean, I wasn't socialized as a child. My parents, for whatever reason, didn't decide to kind of let me out of their clutches. A very claustrophobic environment. So I've always been a bit physically awkward in front of people. I've never felt that things are fluid, and I've always thought of myself as a bit clunky. And I've seen myself in videos and birthdays and Christmas and stuff, and I'm like the one that looks like, walking around like a piece of wood. And that has changed dramatically. I'm much more flexible and open now, which is fantastic. How can people get hold of you, Debbie, to talk about this, to talk about the work that you do, to talk about your podcast? What's the mechanism of them being in touch?
Go to my website, debbiewilliamspodcast.com, and you'll have all the links to my socials from there.
Perfect. Nice and short and simple and wonderful. We're going to put those details in the chat. So in the show notes, I should say, the chat, my goodness me, too many Zoom meetings. And so that's going to be great. Have you got any lasting message that you'd like to leave to this wonderful audience of ours as to looking at success, looking at where they are now, as maybe words of encouragement?
I would say, don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Everyone has a different starting point, and everyone will have a different finishing point, but always look at your own journey. Where did I start? Where did my journey begin? And always celebrate little successes along the way. And just don't be afraid to show up as you in a process.
Wonderful. We'll end with the word wonderful again. That was brilliant. Thank you, Debbie. And please do, everybody, get in touch with Debbie. She's the most amazing lady. She's got a big heart. She's got time for people. And I know that she'd just love to have a chat with you, see how she can help, add support, etc. None of the people that we have on our guests are going to sell to you, so don't worry about that. So it's a question of, do leave your likes and comments as well, so that we can both, once it's uploaded, be in touch with you and keep that communication going as well. Also share, please, because this is something which I think is incredibly valuable for all kinds of people, whether you're in business on your own, whether you are self-employed, whether you are a part of a company, whether you're a huge entrepreneur. There's always a little bit more that you can get out of your communication skills, and that includes listening, as we've learned today. So thank you very much, Debbie. You've been a brilliant, inspiring, and just wonderful person to have on the show. It's been a real privilege.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
Oh, my pleasure. And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us. It's always so truly appreciated. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Be successful. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye now.